and welcome to another Biddle on January 18th, 2020. How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Still here.
Rocco.
All right. This is not going to be an easy episode.
No.
Most of you already know, but for those who have not heard the news, we lost a really good friend of the community this week. We found out through a blog post from Kendall, who is one of the developers, the original developers of Peppermint, that after a stay in hospital, Mark Greaves passed away on January 14th. This is a sad day for Mark's family, his wife Jayne, and his two sons Dan and Marcus. For us as a community, it's a really sad day. We lost a really good friend.
Yeah.
But we are here tonight to honor Mark and his selfless contributions to all of us as individuals. This episode is dedicated to Mark and the huge impact he had on Linux, on the community, and us. Forgive me if I get some of the dates or names wrong. I'm going to say what I believe to be true in this history of what happened in Mark's life. So to do that, we have to start at the beginning. Some of these words will be from forum members, community members. Some of them will be my words. Some of them will be from an interview with Mark himself. In May of 2010, Kendall Weaver and Shane Remington released a brand new distro called PeppermintOS 1. The following year, they released PeppermintOS 2 in April 2011. It was receiving some really good press at the time, so it was in the news, it was everywhere. Meanwhile, along comes a guy named Mark who had been using Linux for about 2 years. He was looking for a replacement distro for his netbook that ran Ubuntu 10.10. So after trying PeppermintOS 2 and falling in love with it, he started to get involved in the Peppermint forums and in the community. More and more, and eventually to the point where he took over administering the forums, the Peppermint forums themselves. Over the next few years, he continued growing his relationship with Peppermint and the Peppermint community. So shortly after Peppermint 5's release, Kendall announced that due to business commitments that he was not going to be able to continue with the project. So there was this big discussion on what was going to happen, what was in the future, and if Peppermint would even continue. By this time, Mark was deeply involved in Peppermint, and he wanted it to continue. So with the help of Shane and also from Kendall, Mark continued Peppermint and eventually took over the project. So he was the lead of the project for the release of Peppermint 6 in May of 2015. Since then, we've enjoyed a release of Peppermint every single year, including this year with the release of Peppermint 10. It's received a ton of Linux headlines. It's received a ton of great reviews from well-known sources. But that's only half the story. That's not the rest of the story. The other half, I'll let Mark say in his own words. So when asked about what type of users find Peppermint interesting in a written text interview, Mark said, "I can only go on those that I've met via the forum and social media channels. But I'd say people with a common interest in a lightweight distro that makes users' choice and customization the center point, and those that enjoy the sense of community surrounding Peppermint, something we're more proud of than the distro itself." I think that speaks volumes of what Mark thought of the community. When he was asked to talk about the milestones of Peppermint, he could have mentioned all of the things that they accomplished. And this is what he had to say. We don't really have any. We're not trying to rule the world. We're simply a small community where our only goal is to keep that community happy by listening and interacting. And after all, PeppermintOS is its community. So when asked about the Peppermint team, Mark said, including our trusted users who we consider an integral part of the team because we couldn't do this without them. All at the current time, there's 21 of us. Not all are active at any given time, but all contribute wherever and whenever they can. Peppermint has been very lucky in attracting a super enthusiastic team that it's a pleasure to work with and an honor to know. That says it all right there. The Peppermint forums and the people that make up that community are fantastic, and it was all led by a guy named Mark Greaves. This past week, Mark Greaves' wife, Jayne, posted on the Peppermint forums, and she wrote, "Hello, everyone. My name is Jayne. I am Mark's wife. I'd like to say a massive thank you from myself and our 2 sons for all the wonderful messages you have written about Mark. He loved talking to you all and helping everyone. You guys were like his second family. He was very proud of Peppermint, and a friend of ours had a Peppermint clock done for him, which he loved. Also, his mouse mat and wallet had the Peppermint logo on them. So we shall all be wearing Peppermint t-shirts when we have his funeral in honor of this wonderful man. Thank you once again for all your support. We have read your messages. It's lovely to see how loved he was. God bless all of you." Also, this past week, I received a Telegram message from Mark's account, and it was Mark's son, Marcus. And along with trying to find out info about tonight's show, he said, I've read through every tribute given on all different platforms, and it's an honor to realize my dad helped, was loved, and will be missed by so many people. And I believe it was Mark's other son who posted, Dan, who posted in the linuxforums.org.uk. And he said, I know he loved Peppermint, and the work he did for you guys really helped him. He had somewhere he belonged, and it's down to you all. I cannot thank you enough for the support you guys gave him. I'm not sure who to contact, so I'm trying all the forums and emails I can. If you want to ask questions, I'm happy to help. I know limited IT, but I'm kind of walking in his footsteps and will help in any way I can. He would want that. Yes, he would want that. Mark Greaves, also known as PC NetSpec, helped me personally multiple times with things I couldn't get working or I broke. He didn't have to. I didn't ask him to help me. He went out of his way to help me. If I mentioned on Biddle that I had a problem with something, he personally telegrammed me and said, here's a config file that will help. Here's a script that will help with this. He had a great sense of humor. He was always joking in the YouTube chat, always cracking jokes towards me, and I thought it was hilarious. But in helping people, he could have said he's too busy. And he would have been right in saying that. He would have been right in saying that he's too busy because of all of the work he did for Peppermint. But that wasn't who he was. He was an amazing guy that I asked a few times to be on Linux Spotlight. But the spotlight was not where he wanted to be. He just wanted to help people. So all I can say is what a great man, and also an honor to know. And my prayers will be with his family tonight and the days going forward. So God bless all of you. All right.
Absolutely. I didn't know Mark well enough, unfortunately, but you're absolutely right. He was just a joy to interact with, and it was always fun on YouTube to poke fun at him, play around, and yeah, he was just one of those people. We always talk about Linux and open source, and it's this magical thing because you have people like Mark who dedicate their time and passion and expertise and just love, right? Their love for what they do. And we owe so much to people like him for that effort that they put in. And obviously it's a tremendous loss and extremely sad, and he will be greatly missed by everyone. And but it's just a testament to who he was as a person, and what kind of people there are involved in this community. Just wonderful people. So thank you for everything you did for us, Mark. And yes, absolutely, Mark's family. If you didn't know what kind of impact he had on the people around him, hopefully, if nothing else, you see how many people are reaching out and saying kind things, and that is the mark of a great life and a great person. So
All right. If anybody would like to mention anything, any memories they have of Mark, or any tribute to him at all, you're more than welcome to do it now.
I'll say something, Rocco, if that's fine.
Go ahead, do it.
All right. Well, I didn't know the man that well or that personally, but I have a great respect for knowing that he made a great Linux distro for new people and people who know what they're doing, and I value all the time and effort he put into hearing about how many people he's helped, and I really value him, and I hope that his legacy will be remembered as somebody who really drove out of his way to give us something that was super easy, but was still taking out the time to seek out and help a lot of us in a good way. And kudos to Mark for that. And it's a shame we never really got to bring him on, but we got to respect his wishes, and so rest in peace, Mark. That's all I can tell you. So.
All right. Anybody else?
I'll tell you something about Mark. Mark, on one of the times when we were on MX, we were figuring out 32-bit UFI. He chimes in after the show, and we chat for quite a while. And he wants to know what computer we're using to set this up, because Peppermint at the time didn't boot that way. So we go through, and I say, well, you're not going to like it, but you can have this computer. You can get on Amazon for $100. It's fine. So he orders it, and he calls me back later. And he says, gosh, you're right. It has 32-bit UFI, but man, is that a POS piece of crap computer. And he and I went back and forth on making the 32-bit UFI work. About a month ago, he chimed in and said, hey, I saw you got that live USB maker thing in an app image. I said, yeah. He says, will that make us the ISO? No, it's not the snapshot thing. He goes, oh, I want the snapshot thing for Peppermint. I said, okay. So I gave him all the Git repos, and I think it overwhelmed him just a little bit, but he was great. He would just blow in the middle of nowhere and hit the feed, and it was great to talk to him, and behind the scenes without being out in front of everybody. It was a lot of fun. So for Mark, I just because it will never see the light of day now because he's not working on it, I did take the Annex Live system, put it on a PeppermintOS disk, and I'm running PeppermintOS 10 off a live USB right now, and I call it the Mark Greaves edition. And I kind of like it. I'm going to keep it around.
All right. Anybody else?
I guess. I think it was Mark. I think it was Mark Greaves who said, like, it was Jason Evangelist said on his show or on a post, if your distro didn't exist, what would you use? And he said, I would make PeppermintOS because that's what he would do. He would make it. So I didn't know him very well, just in the chats, like Eric and probably like a lot of people, but it was obvious he was so engaged in the community. And I think that he exemplifies what a contributor really is, not just in code and time, but in the way he treated his fellow community member. And I really appreciate that about him. And that's how I will always remember him, as someone who is involved at every level and so he will be missed.
Steve, you're going to say something?
Yeah, as a budding, YouTuber and peppermint lover, I asked Mark's permission if I can talk about things about peppermint, and he was like all open, and I still got the communication. I saved it. He didn't have to do that, or he didn't have to say yes, or he could have said, I don't care. But I found out how much, he meant when one day I'm doing one of my early live streams, and who pops in with a comment is Mark. And I thought that was pretty cool. And he was often stopping in and buzzing in and out of my chats. I know he was constantly like on EBs and all that. But I guess one of the fondest things, and I didn't get, we would chat a little bit in the forums. After our Biddle challenge last year, he sent me a message. Thank you for, supporting Peppermint, and thank you for being an advocate for it. And then one final thing is, Gnostic had started this Big Papa Peppermint. And to me, Zeb is Big Papa Peppermint, or even Mark is. But they were on an EB stream, and Gnostic caught Mark in there and said that he had named me Big Papa Peppermint, and it pretty much got his blessing. And it was kind of a funny thing at first, but if you're not part of this community, you don't know what we're kind of feeling right now. And yes, it's geeky, it's techie, it's but it was someone that shared, his life with us, and gave it a kind of a meaning. I know it helped me in a lot of ways when I was starting my channel, and I'll never forget him.
I don't think none of us or any of us will forget him. He was that kind of guy. Anybody else?
Rocco?
Yep.
So I've been using Peppermint on my laptop for about a year, and so not long on Peppermint and not long in the forums. But I remember when Peppermint went through the 5.0 kernel and broke my NVIDIA. I posted about it on the forum, and Mark dove in and helped, and over a couple of days got my system working again. And looking back, he spent about 2 hours at least with me over that time, and that's amazing for anyone to do that.
Yep, agreed. Well, I said multiple times he helped me. He would sit there and say he would dive into it, and then just be a constant back and forth. Hey, does this work? Does that work? And it was a constant effort with him. Bill?
So one of the funny things about Mark is in Biddle, I had mentioned something that I was having an issue when I was using Peppermint, and Peppermint has that little mishmash of couple things from different places. And so he just messages me. He's like, send me your script. And so we spent a good amount of time just going over a script, a silly little script, but he didn't really know me, but he just went, boom. Oh yeah, we need to change this because Nemo controls this part of the desktop, but this is being run here. So it's just a little different. He didn't have to do that. It was out of the blue. It wasn't in a chat forum. It was just in Biddle.
Yep.
And I've seen him do that for several people that mention they have an issue, and they'll be like, Zeb will say, ping Mark. And they do. And then they come back later. Yeah, Mark talked to me and we got it all fixed. And that's pretty incredible. And we're talking about the guy in a community sense. Don't forget some of the technical stuff, like the ICE browser, the SSB browser that he has. It's one of the big parts of Peppermint. That's awesome stuff. I put the link into the Zoom chat, and I'll probably put it in the YouTube chat, the GitHub repos. All that stuff's out there. And just as a saying, it's in Linux, it's open source. keep contributing to this stuff that's out there. If you see it and you like it, keep Mark's memory, Peppermint, keep it alive by keep working on this stuff. And I mean, he was just a great guy, always would be helpful. All my thoughts and feelings to his family and his loved ones. And that's it.
Yep. I just put a link in the YouTube chat for the text interview that Mark did on Linux and Ubuntu.com, and you can check that out if you like. Anybody else? Dave, go ahead.
The one thing I'm going to try and do is follow his example of not waiting for people to reach out to him, because I came to know Peppermint through English Bob and through Zeb, and going on their streams and trying it out and falling in love with it, and still running it on some of my laptops. But when the first time I came to see Mark in the chats and just kind of seeing him there and realizing that he was like the head of Peppermint, I would never comment to him because, you know, that was the head of Peppermint. And I was in a stream, either English Bob's or Zeb's one day, and he greeted me. I hadn't said anything to him, hadn't asked anything, and he greeted me by name, and I was like, hi. But he was like that. He reached out to make sure that everyone was included in the conversation, in the group, in the process. And so if I could suggest one thing, an easy way to keep his memory alive is to don't wait for people to reach out to you. Always be willing to reach out to them.
Yep. Well said, dude.
Yeah, well said, Dave. Yep.
Anybody else want to get in?
While we're waiting, I'll just mention that ICE is definitely a very interesting tool, and you can use it outside of Peppermint if you're not using Peppermint. I've tried it on other systems. Someone actually the other day was talking about, you know, one of our favorite topics of having apps integrate well with the desktop, and how, you know, it's usually Chrome based, and they didn't like that. And I said, well, you know, ICE is an option because you can create Firefox, you know, apps. So I think that is a tool that maybe doesn't quite get the exposure, and just it's one of those little genius quality of life things that I think people that use Peppermint love it, because it is just such a simple, great, solid system, you know. And hit you, like you said from his interview, they weren't out there pushing it, they weren't trying to make it a big thing. It was just, you know, for the people who understood it and knew it, they loved it for what it was. So, and for what it is. I'm not saying in the past tense.
Yep. All right, Thomas.
So I'll be honest here. I didn't really know him that well. I think I talked to him a handful of times, but I had a great deal of respect for him, because doing the kind of work that he did, it's difficult and it takes up a lot of your time. And to do that and enjoy it, and then go a step farther and help your users, says a lot about a person, especially when you do, as Dave said, and you reach out to people and make a point to help them, not wait for them to come to you. And I read something the other day before I learned that Mark passed away that I think is really applicable in this situation. What I read said, you're not truly gone until you're forgotten. And Mark's memory and Mark's influence on the Linux community is so large and widespread that I don't think he's ever going to be truly gone. I think he's always going to be remembered in some way, shape, or form. Because without him, PeppermintOS wouldn't be here today. And PeppermintOS is a great distro. So he's still with us, just not in the conventional sense. You know, he he will be remembered, and he is still here in what he has done for Linux.
All right, Barbara.
Okay. I just want to say I've never used Peppermint, and I never met Mark, but I do know. I actually had to write this because I get too upset otherwise. I do know that he was an important and valued member of the Linux community. His knowledge, influence, helpfulness, and input went way beyond just Peppermint, but it really had an impact on the whole community. And, Mark, you will be greatly missed. And my thoughts go out to Mark's family. Be proud of Mark's legacy.
Yep. All right, anybody else? All right. Mark will be greatly missed. And I don't know exactly how to make a transition from something like this to Linux. But I do know that if Mark were here, he would tell us to continue on because it's about the community and it's about the people. And we're here to talk to each other. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to remember Mark, but we're going to continue on as well.
And it's apropos because we're talking about a distribution that has been helping a young man with.
Yep, absolutely. I was going to say that, Steve. It's sort of a, Ferren is coming into, this space and doing great things, and a lot of that was with Mark and through Mark, and so we picked a distro that's apropos, and just to transition. I mean, I think you guys know. I mean, Ferren's a young man, and he puts his heart and soul into this distribution and has done amazing things with he's using technologies from different desktop environments. He's working directly with the teams, so he's not off in a corner somewhere just coming up with the things that he comes up with. He actually is out there. He's reaching out. He's making inroads and impressions on and some of the things he's been doing are very interesting in the KDE team, and some of the things that he's been doing is he's another example of a distribution that has ideas that are now affecting the larger whole, right? The contribution he's making the contribution he's making is impacting larger things, and this is a great example of another person doing that, right? Taking the initiative and doing great things. And for him to be as young as he is and to be this driven, I think that in and of itself is very impressive. And hopefully some folks got to try it this week. And I mean, you have to admit, he's put a lot of effort into polish, fit and feel, focusing on the end user. He's always around to answer questions, and if you ever have feedback for him, he's quick to be there and take the initiative. So,
all right, well, let's go into it. We'll just start with you, Eric. Did you try Ferren OS?
I have, and I've been watching it for quite a long time. I've used it when it was the Cinnamon-based desktop, and Plasma was the new. And now we've transitioned into Plasma being the main edition, and Cinnamon's now the legacy. And yeah, I mean, it's excuse me, it is a very interesting exercise in taking the best pieces of different distributions and different desktop environments and one person's vision of what that can look like, and bringing it together. So he puts a heavy emphasis on the cohesion of everything being, fitting together the way that that it should, and also being easy to use. So there's some things that he's done in this latest release that are very interesting, especially the desktop layouts.
Yep.
So Plasma has the ability to have the different layouts, and then also you can inherit all of the defaults from that. So it's, from the wallpaper to the layout of the panels to
Eric,
using. Yes.
Do you know that layout switcher? Is that something he wrote, or is that something that he grabs from somewhere else? Or
It's Plasma specific. So I think that he actually did the heavy lifting on that. I mean, you can say it was inspired, or it's not unique in the sense that it hasn't been done before, but I think the way he's done it using Plasma is, I haven't seen another implementation like that. And it does,
I think it's his.
yeah, I'm almost positive that he took inspiration, I'm sure, from other, Mate has a tweaks that kind of lets you do that. Zorin, there are other distributions that have something like that. I think MX might as well. Dolphin says no, but yeah, in terms of implementing that on top of Plasma, I'm pretty sure that he's sort of at the forefront there. And I think maybe that's what's interesting to the Plasma team, some of the things he's been able to do there. And if you haven't seen it, it lets you switch between, I think, 5 or 6 different layouts. So he has his own sort of default layout that it comes with, a light and a dark. Then there's a familiar, which is going to be your bar at the bottom, and then just some different easy layouts, and you can click through them, apply them, and it just transforms your desktop. So that's a great sort of out of the box first step. And once you install, that's the first thing he asks you to do, is like pick what you like.
Which it should be the first thing you do.
Yes, exactly. Let's get you settled in. Let's get you comfortable as a user with this system. And so you go through those steps of setting it up the way you want, and then you're left with this lovely, desktop that's, fully customized with a good set of default applications for everything that you're going to probably want to do. And because it's Plasma, you're able to, tweak it in many different ways. And it's a little interesting at first because it's Plasma and you think, oh, well, there's going to be Dolphin. Well, no, he's went with Nemo, which is fine because Nemo is an excellent file manager, but that's his preference. And so that's what's there. Someone had made a comment about, well, can I get Dolphin? He's like, yeah, just install it. It's fine. It'll work fine if that's what you want instead. So you can take what he gives you and then extend that pretty easily. But, the Mint updater is in there instead of Discover. And then for the Software Center, he's got his own.
Now, what do you think about that? What do you think about that choice?
I like the Mint updater. I mean, I do, because it asks you to set up the snapshots if you haven't already, which is great. It's a solid updater in terms of the way that it presents the packages to you and shows you what it's going to do. I think it's a fine choice. And coming from Cinnamon, that kind of makes sense because he's kind of got some of those Mint tools. As I've said, one of the strengths of Mint is that that Mint includes such nice tools, especially for, let's say, newer users or users who aren't interested in using the command line maybe as much. So the updater is absolutely one of those great, pieces of functionality. The Software Center, his own tools. So he has a browser selection tool where you can pick from a bunch of different popular browsers and install. It has that same feel of a distribution that is well thought out, that is focused very specifically on a user who may not be the most technical person, who wants the flexibility to make changes on their system, but without having to maybe dig into settings or, go to the command line. So my time with it's been great. I've found, no issues really. I mean, I can't think of any crashes or anything that I saw. He mentioned today, I was in a different chat with him, and he mentioned, did I see when I ran an update, it popped up and said, here's what's new in the January update. And I thought, that's fantastic, right? I mean, you've made a bunch of changes, you installed a bunch of stuff, and you're now telling the person, hey, here's all this stuff I did. Here's what to look for. Here's how to get in touch if you have questions. It's a very nice touch. Little things like that. It's this a little attention to detail.
Yep. Agreed. There are so many good points to Ferren OS. I mean, I did find some minor things I didn't care for. That had to do with pixels being off. But it's not, not a big deal. I really couldn't find a layout that I liked, like by default. Obviously it's Plasma and you can change it to whatever you want to. certain layouts, like if I was like say the Mac OS one or the Cupertino one or whatever it was, didn't have the menu at the top. Like I like it. So just certain things about it but I could all change easily. I didn't really care for some of the themes that were in it, but this is all like superficial stuff. So the welcome screen where you have the switching of the layouts is awesome. All of the I will say like him adding the global menu to a couple of them layouts is just fabulous. I mean, I miss the global menu. So there are a lot of great features about Ferren, but let's continue on. Nate, sir, did you get to try Ferren?
Why, yes, I have. I'm still playing with it. I won't give a full review right now, but so aside from the positives that have already been spoken about, I totally agree with those. I would have preferred Dolphin by default, but whatever.
You mean the best file manager on the planet?
Right.
Yeah, well, I argue that.
That's fine. You can argue wrong. And then, but what I thought was really neat is if you leave his welcome screen open. Did anybody do this? Leave his welcome screen open. The bird, his logo, it'll do different things. It'll spin. It'll fade out. It'll come in. It just like little. He puts these like little touches everywhere in Ferren. I don't know how much you watched it, but it's really neat to see the different little things he does to make it his own. And I appreciate that. But I mean, it's built on Ubuntu, so you have all the stability there. It's you're not it's not a dodgy base.
Do we know what Plasma version it is?
5.17.5.
Okay.
Well, there we go. And anyway, I like the different layouts. I would just go Breeze Dark just because that's what I like. But outside of that, I'm just doing it in the Ferren OS default dark theme right now with green highlights.
Of course.
Yeah, because you can, right? I mean, you can just choose whatever you want. So it's great. But that's it for now. I really like it. I think it's well done, and I think it's very well thought out, and I really appreciate the je ne sais quoi, as it were, about it.
All right, excellent. Dan, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Eric. I didn't get a chance to really get through it too much this week. But it's something I've been following for a while. Obviously, we all have. But really impressive. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned yet that I also find very impressive is the documentation that's available. I know Ferren put a lot of that into, just for this release, just before the release came out. He's been working hard on that, and it's a good format. It's the read the docs format, and so you can follow along. It takes you right through. It talks about all of the switching from Windows and using the tools that he's put in there to help you switch. And it talks about everything from burning the ISO and downloading and all of that stuff. So it's pretty fantastic. I'm amazed it's as complete as it is in the short amount of time that he's worked on it, which is really great. And I'm sure it'll grow into something super excellent, just like the distro has. I mean, that's also amazing in the short amount of time that he's been, transitioning from the Cinnamon version to the Plasma version. It's really starting to get some really good polish, I think. So it's very impressive.
Yeah, and it is kind of hard to imagine that one person is doing all this.
I'll agree with that.
I mean, I know, the youth and endless energy and all that stuff, but there are limits. So yeah, that you're absolutely right. The documentation is spot on. It just the level, again, the attention to detail is really what it comes down to, and it's pretty amazing. So, well, thanks for that. Vash, are you there, sir? Going once, going twice.
I am here. I did not get a chance to mess with Ferren very much this week, though. But I plan to do so this coming week, so I can reply next week.
And that's why we do 2-week challenges now, for just that reason. Okay, no problem. Eris, are you there, sir?
Hello.
How are you? Did you get a chance to try Ferren?
Yes, I tried Ferren. I have tried Ferren in the past. I think we did a challenge. I don't remember when exactly. And I did notice that the startup speed of the distro is much improved. I remember it was slower before. Ferren really worked on that and it shows. The login screen and the lock screen is really nice. Looks very professional. That blur that it has to it.
Yes, you're right. It is very nice.
The wallpapers, the icons are very nice. I know it's like Plasma, but it's a little bit like the default theme, but a little bit different. Overall, I think it's a great distro. I think I mentioned it before last week. Usually Plasma is very default most distros, and this is a very customized Plasma, which we really don't see. And I think there should be really more of that. I will say that I did find some things I think he could tweak. Like when the welcome screen pops up and it says if you want to install proprietary codecs, I think it should ask you if you want to connect to Wi-Fi in case you're not connected, because otherwise it's like over on the side, and that should be like the first thing I think, and then it should ask you that, but they could easily switch that. The Plasma panel I think could be a little bit lighter, the light one, because there's not enough contrast, I think, because of the icons are like black and it's like a dark blue. If it was as light as the clock on top, I know one of the different modes has like the clock on top. If it could be like the latte dock, that color, that would be great. Or if you could have it in between that and the Plasma panel, I think that would be better for contrast. Also the terminal, it doesn't have autocomplete. I don't know if it doesn't autocomplete very well.
He fixed that. Yeah, I mentioned
that?
it to him too. Bash completion wasn't installed, and it was just an oversight. And I bugged him earlier in the week, so it's in the next iteration.
For me, if for the theme colorizer, if you could have an option, I don't know if you can tweak the Breeze theme, but I use the light Breeze theme. I don't use the dark one. I used to use the dark one for everything, but I noticed that if I have everything dark and then I have a white window that I can't control, like zoom, that's just awful for me. So I'd rather have everything bright, and then I can turn up the night color or the redshift and just lower the monitor, and I think that's better overall. But if I could control everything, yeah, I think dark would be better. But since I can't control everything, especially zoom, zoom, it'd be greater if it was light. So if you could have the theme colorizer have an option for the Breeze or the Breeze light theme, that would be great for me. But overall, everything works. I think it's nice how he uses the KDE Neon repos, and he like adjusts it so he makes sure it works. So sometimes I use KDE Neon for like over a year, and it would break on me. It broke on me like twice, and I think he keeps up with that and makes sure that it doesn't break because of the updates.
What would he be using from the KDE Neon repos?
I think it's the base.
Really?
And he updates it himself. He has his own repo, I think, with the updates and then when he thinks it's ready, then he puts it into the distro. That's my understanding. I'm not sure if that's what it is, but if you notice, that's one of the repos that makes up distro.
Yep.
Yeah. And then he also has his own personal GitHub repo that I think he pulls in whenever he gets an update he wants to get through.
Do we know about how often the Plasma version would be updated? Like approximately when he would get the new 5.18 or something like that?
I don't think he's going to do it in beta. I mean, he'll wait until it's released. I think he wants to give people a stable experience, so it's going to probably follow the stable releases.
Okay.
But it'll probably follow pretty quickly because of using the Neon repos. So
yeah,
this is true.
So Eris, you mentioned a couple things in there. I mean, first, we haven't had a chance to focus on Ferren in a while. So all of this feedback is for the things that aren't, I mean, he's one person and he's getting some feedback, but this is a good exercise because we can all give him this kind of feedback. Second, the boot up time, you're absolutely right. It occurred to me how quickly I was getting to the login screen when I was booting up, which is, I mean, it is amazingly fast. And then you did mention also the contrast on the panel. Some of the
Yeah.
icons, like I use the color picker widget, and for some reason on a dark panel, I guess it's because I have the light theme selected. It's a dark icon on a dark background, so the contrast is a little off. But those, again, these are little things that I think
It's a little things that do. It's just
exactly.
overall everything works pretty much. Yeah.
Right.
And that's it. Very very interesting experience, very unique. Since like I said, nobody really customizes Plasma when they put it in a distro.
Yeah, it's a good point. Thanks, Aris. Tony, did you get a chance to play around with Ferren this week?
Yes, I've been playing around with it quite a lot this week. Last time I tried it, I think it was in beta.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of problems with the microphone, and it didn't seem to work too well. It wasn't polished, but this time it was perfect. Everything works. It's very polished. The only problem I had with it, which is a personal thing, is I just couldn't decide what theme to use. There was too much choice for me.
Seems like a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's not a bad problem to have at all, but I tried all the themes. I tried all the software on it that I would normally use, which is a lot less than you guys, because I don't do live videos and things. So I don't need a lot of the stuff that you would use. But everything I wanted worked. I just think it's fantastic. And I wish him all the best for the future with it. And it's one I'm keeping an eye on. I could be tempted to run it on the main machine, but I'm still at the moment on PopOS.
Yep.
Nice.
Man.
Okay. Penguin, have you given Ferren OS a whirl?
Yes, I have actually, and I thought it was a great OS. It's a beautiful layout. I did like that layout switcher, but I pretty much installed everything default. The dark theme I thought was a little off, but that's just a personal preference of mine. One problem I did have is it didn't install my Wi-Fi code on that laptop for some reason. I had to go in there and install it myself from the repos. The driver tool didn't even recognize it. So I don't know what that was about, because I've never had a problem with that with any Ubuntu on this laptop. Other than that, I've had a great time with it. The only thing I would probably change, but again, this is personal, is I don't like Vivaldi as the default browser. I prefer Brave if I'm going to do a privacy-based browser. The menu choices was actually pretty nice. He's added 2 new menus to Plasma, which I thought was pretty nice as well. The use of the Mint store and the updater, that's actually pretty nice as well. I thought it was kind of strange that he used Nemo, but Nemo's a solid file manager, but I would have thought he would have tried to use a Qt based. But other than that, I thought it was great.
Okay. Excellent. Thomas, how about you? Did you try Ferren OS?
So I am in the middle of trying it out right now in a virtual machine. So far, I noticed that he has something in there to detect when you're running it in a virtual machine. Nice touch. Everybody here knows, I think, that I'm not a big KDE Plasma person, or Qt in general. But that being said, I do like this implementation. It's not bad. The animations are a little bit too much for me, but that's just a personal preference, so it's not a big deal. I love the dark theme. The dark theme is amazing. 10 out of 10 on that. Someone else said that they didn't like the Vivaldi. I'm in the same boat. I'm not a big Vivaldi person. I've used it. It's not bad. I would have preferred Firefox, but he has something in there to just couple clicks and you're in Firefox. So not a big deal. I appreciate that, so I don't have to deal with the terminal, even though I don't mind the terminal. Other than that, yeah, love the dark theme. Nemo, I love as well. Not bad. Yeah, my only real issue with it is just I'm not a big person with animations and transparency. So I'm in here trying to figure out how to turn all of that down. But I like it. I've talked to the Ferren OS dev a number of times, and this is his baby. So if I meet someone who's looking for their next KDE distro, this will probably be the one I suggest, like out front, even over Kubuntu or KDE Neon, because this is his baby, and he's going to make sure that it works great for a long time to come.
All right. Thank you, Thomas. Jason, sir.
Well, I have not had much time to mess around with Ferren OS. It's been a crazy week for me, but I will definitely play with it some more and give you some more insight next week.
All right, dig it. Dan Kelly, I know you tried it out.
Oh, yes, and I'm bringing it to you right now from Ferren OS running with Zoom.
Flip out the notes there, Dan, and give it to us, will you?
Okay, well, first of all, I stuffed this in a virtual machine last Sunday, and the first thing I got that popped up after the installer's great. I love the installer. Everything worked fine. The documentation's top-notch, and it's not written in a way that's for technical people. It's written in plain English, about as plain as you can get. So I loved all the documentation. I looked at all of it. But when I had it in the virtual machine, when it started up, I got this thing that looked like Windows 10. And I'm like, oh my God, he cloned it. And the only thing that was missing out of it was Candy Crush. So I got the wow factor out of that. So we put it on some real metal, and I've been in and out of it all week long. And keep in mind, when I'm telling you this stuff, I'm not a big Plasma experienced person. So I had to like struggle and find things that would be like the flashiness of the windows when they go from translucent and back to normal again, kind of irritated me. So I had to try ways of turn that off. Other than that, I do have some notes. Oh, by the way, for all you people that didn't like Vivaldi installed, there is a thing that is called a web browser manager. It's for those people that really want to go somewhere else.
Good shout out for that.
Yeah, that's actually a Peppermint tool.
Is that a Ferren thing? The web browser
Go ahead,
manager?
Penguin. Go ahead, Penguin.
No, he's muted. I'll take it. No, it's a Peppermint thing. So it's a really good shout.
Yep.
Okay.
Actually, Zoran, he mentioned in the chat that he actually stole it. It was an old Zoran thing, and he gave it to Mark.
All right. Okay, thank you. One thing I did encounter, because I did have to switch my web browser as well, include installing Thunderbird Mail, because I got to have that to live in it, is when I got these programs installed, there was actually no text for the menu at the top of the screen or the top of the window for any of the tabs. My mail just had straight lines where there was supposed to be mail in the Thunderbird. And I struggled for this for quite a while, and I kind of thought that this would probably be a settings issue. So I found myself finally in a place called JTK Application Style, and there's a box that says behavior, and inside that I changed the toolbar label from none to something else, and underneath it there was two boxes, one for knobs and buttons or whatever, and I checked those, and it turned on all the text that was missing for the GTK stuff, including the text that's supposed to go on top of Nemo. I noticed that was missing too. And that was the only real deep bug that I, came across with this. I love the fact that the flat pack was installed by default. I didn't have to go do a flat pack install. Nemo, check. I love Nemo. The Mint updater, I love the Mint updater, except I had one weird experience with it tonight when I fired this thing up. It said that it needed an update. I checked on it, and it said it couldn't update. And then it appeared that it was automatically updating and misleading me. So I don't know if it does that or not. But then in the update box, when I opened again, it said update complete. But if it's going to pull stuff like that, it should have at least a progress bar or an icon that indicates that it's automatically fetching your update. And I think there was like 4 or 5 of them that it went and got. Other than that, that concludes my list. Other than the transparency thing, that's the only thing that turns me off personally.
Well, the transparency is more of a personal preference. I like to see it.
Find that. I can't find it.
Well, I personally like to see. Go ahead.
I got it down to the mouse over for the panel at the bottom. It does it now when you mouse over that only. I found the other one that was irritating me. But yes,
I think that's the widget for the task manager. So if you right click the panel and then go to edit panel, you highlight where all those windows are. It says configure. Then you go to show tooltips, highlight windows, and just uncheck the one that says highlight windows when hovering over tasks.
Okay. Add widgets or
you go to edit panel. You right click the panel, go edit panel, and then you go over the windows where all those buttons are, and then go to configure for the task manager.
Okay. I'll mess with that later. Nonetheless, this distro looks like a distro that somebody's going to take $500,000 and build a house to his own exact preference that everybody would like. I mean, it's very well polished. The fact that I was able to get up and running, install Zoom, and be here with you guys on it is awesome too. I'm not very picky when it comes to distros, how they're laid out or anything, as long as they work and I can figure out where everything goes. But yes, I'd recommend this for somebody. It's very polished. It's got the wow factor right out of the box.
Now, for those who don't like the transparency, you can go into the settings and turn it off in the desktop effects.
Okay.
It's labeled translucency. You can turn it right off there.
One of the things about Plasma is that I don't think there's actually a way to turn off all the transparency. Like that menu transparency, that's never going away completely because that's the way the Plasma thing is set up. I think I read somewhere online that you have to reconfigure the SVGs to not be transparent, and that's the only way it works there to eliminate completely all the transparency in all the panels.
No, you can disable it. There's a specific setting for menu transparency. I know because I used to play with that in the past, like making it more opaque or making it more translucent. That's an easy setting. That's not a
that would be in the menu settings.
Well, all right, I got it down right now to the point where it's usable for me. But
awesome, Dan. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That said, I don't know what else to tell you.
Paul, sir, how are you?
I'm good. Great review, Dan. I haven't tried it yet. It's been a crazy week, so maybe next week if we're still doing it.
Okay. Mr. Bill Frank SMCB. It's one of those names. If I say them all, he'll answer, right?
Come on, Bill.
Maybe not. All right, we will skip Bill. Barbara.
Okay. I actually did install it this afternoon. I haven't had too much of a chance to play with it, but I started. I, like a lot of other people, I've been following it all the way along, and I I really kind of enjoyed it, even though I'm not a Plasma person. What he does is make Plasma acceptable to those of us who are not Plasma people. What I did like was the installer. I really like the fact that when you get to the part where you want what drive you want to put it on, you don't have to sit there and go through. You just kind of check off what you need, and then you can, and it does it. It's not like with the regular installers like the Ubuntu and stuff, where it takes, or I have to go in and delete it. It's not as nice as this. This was much nicer. One thing that, and somebody else had mentioned this about the Wi-Fi. When you're running it off the USB and you set the Wi-Fi and then you install, it doesn't, when you reboot, once you've installed it, when you reboot, it doesn't have Wi-Fi automatically on. And that kind of surprised me because Ubuntu does. I don't know about Mint because I've never used it, but I do know that Ubuntu, if you turn it on in your in the installer, you're connected when you reboot. So I don't know, that might just be a flag that's got to be set or whatever, but I think that would make life easier for people, because I had the same problem somebody else mentioned when I was doing the updates and the restricted drivers and all that kind of stuff. And it just sat there and spun and spun and spun, and I was wondering what was going on. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, I wasn't connected to Wi-Fi. I like how it walks you through once you've installed it. I do have one little nit, and it's a nit. He's got all these options. I love the dark theme, so I'm using that. But he's got all these options for colors. And yes, there's green, and it's not, green belongs on plants, not on my monitor.
Tell that to Nate, Barbara.
I know, that's what I'm trying to, I noticed he popped back up. Hey, Barb, I use Mate desktop, and it's not green.
Barb, just when you say Plasma and Michael Tennell shows up, if you say green, Nate shows up. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's just the way it is.
It's easy being green.
Well, at least your skin isn't green this time. Sometimes you are on the... But anyway, he's got all these nice colors, but he didn't have purple. That's just a nit, and I'm sure I can go in, since it's Plasma, and change it. So I chose fuchsia or whatever it was.
He was in the chat, so hopefully he's hearing that, and he's going to add that tomorrow.
I'm a little offended that there's no purple, but there's green. That's,
Hey, that's a start.
I'd go with that too. I want some purple.
Yeah, see, there you go. And that's just my little personal bugaboo. And true, the fact that it didn't have Firefox, no big deal. I can put Firefox on. And the same thing with email. I'm glad what Dan was saying about, because I use Thunderbird. Having to, I wrote that down to look for the GTK tools and go in there. And, otherwise, so far, it's really nice. I want to play with it some more this week. But I've always kind of followed Ferren OS because I think he's doing a great job. And he's a one-man show, and he is real. And I know, and he's young, and he's doing a great job.
Barb, do you know that with Thunderbird, if you take your profile, move it over to another distro, it may not...
That's what I'm going to do.
It may not take if you go and run it back over to your old distro.
I think that has more to do, Dan, with the version of Thunderbird using and not the distro itself.
Yes, I went and got a deb package of Thunderbird 56. And actually, when you take your email profile, load it in that one, and then do an update, then it'll sync to a new Thunderbird. They want you to open an account at Mozilla and have them do all the hard work. And probably keep your data too. I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, so I haven't installed Thunderbird or Firefox yet. I just haven't gotten that far. But so far, I like what I see. Yeah, my one real big thing was, no, it wasn't even the purple. It was that it should automatically, if you've already set up your Wi-Fi password and everything, when you were installing it, should just automatically connect on reboot.
I know that Barbara mentioned that Ubuntu does that. Since Dolphin's here, I'll mention that MX does the same thing.
Yeah, I noticed that. So that's just one of my things. And I think especially if it's a person who's, let's say, new to Linux, it would be nice that it would just automatically connect. And that's it for now. I'll have more next week. So that's it for now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Barb, for that.
You're welcome.
Let's see if Bill's back. Bill, are you there? Bill is not there. Colin, good to see you, sir.
Yes, you too.
How
Good
are
to
you
see
this
everybody.
week?
I'm very well, thanks. It's my last day of a 4-week holiday, so I've had plenty of time to create a couple of videos on Ferren OS.
You have. They're great. Thank you for that.
Yep. Yes, Ferren OS I've installed as my daily driver at the moment. I wanted to see how it goes because I like Plasma, but I get annoyed with Plasma. So it's a love-hate thing I have with Plasma, and just connecting to Zoom this morning with audio was just a nightmare. Just couldn't figure out what was going on. So there's some little quirks with Plasma. I don't know if that's a Ferren OS thing. I think it's a Plasma thing. There seems to be some anomalies with wireless as well. Yesterday, my wireless was deactivating and activating. So I don't know what that was all about. It's all right today. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But yeah, some of the things I'll talk about is installing .debs. He's got a package called QApt Package Installer. So for some reason, when I install a .deb, my fans run very high. So don't know what that's all about. Whether that's normal or not, I'm not sure, but that's what I've experienced. And my little Intel NUC there is no slouch. It's got a fair bit of power in it. So I'm not sure what that's all about. But it does seem to take a while to install the .deb, but it doesn't seem to do anything. And then it's all of a sudden it's installed. So it must run more in the background, I would say. Currently, I'm trying Geary Mail. It's nice. It has a clean interface, but it's just not Thunderbird. So I may have to look at installing Thunderbird, I think. Geary Mail's not too bad. I like the amount of space that it gives you. It seems to give you a lot more space, so I like that. But the email is like cards, and it's very annoying with all those cards in the email. I get a bit confused as to where I am reading emails. So that's one thing I might swap out for Thunderbird, I think. Now, the other thing is in my install video, I updated the update manager first before I did anything, which I thought, and I told everybody that's probably the best thing to do. But what I noticed was it bypassed the snapshots after I did that. So I'm not sure whether that was intentional or not. So Ferren might want to have a look at that. You can get to the update to the snapshots after within the update manager going to edit and snapshots, but which I've shown in my second video. I'm not sure if he intended that behavior to be like that or not. So just thought I'd let Ferren know about that. Layouts, I find they change very smoothly. There's no issues with any of the layouts. They change as intended. You can swap them around as much as you like. There's no crashing or anything like that, so that's great. So I think just going up, Rocco was saying, I think Rocco should go ahead and make us a layout that he feels is suitable for himself and upload it to the KDS store.
No, I really am terrible at making stuff. So I can tell you what does look good and what doesn't look good, but man, don't ask me to make it because it just looks terrible.
You've got a video on that, Rocco, and I have followed that. And I just wanted to ask Ferren, because not on this install, but on previous installs of Ferren, I think when it was in not even beta, I was trying to make a layout, and I was trying to use existing layouts to make a layout. Is that possible, Ferren, that you can use the existing layouts and then adjust those and make a layout? Because for me, on some occasions, it actually didn't work. And I think I was working with the Unity one, and it didn't keep the sidebar. So I don't know whether it's best to start from scratch and make a layout, or there's a integration problem with that because you've got some of the mixed GNOME and Linux Mint stuff in there that could be causing some issues. I haven't tried it since I've been on the new one, so just thought I'd ask him the question anyway. And quite frankly, I am enjoying it, even though it is plasma. And I do understand what Dan's talking about with those windows that pop up. It does get a little bit confusing when they do pop up. You're hovering here and there. So I might actually turn those off myself. So it does get a bit annoying after a while. That it is handy in some occasions, but and then it can be annoying on some others. So that's my experience. I'm quite enjoying it at the moment. So I might have to make a few tweaks on what apps I'm using by default. But besides that, it's running well, and I'm pretty happy with it. So thanks for your hard work, Ferren. I have been following this and making quite a lot of videos about it for quite a while. So I'm happy to support him in that way. I don't know how long I can last on plasma. See how we go. But good work.
Thank you, Colin. Dolphin, how about you? Have you kicked the tires on Ferren?
Yes. I like Ferren. It's all right. I got a couple of notes because I was messing a lot with Peppermint 2 this week. Okay, first off, 2 thumbs up. A lot of the one-man distros out there will not install on a 32-bit UEFI. Actually, I didn't try the 32-bit UEFI. I just tried regular UEFI. It installed fine without a net connection. I've run into that in the past. I always try on one of my junker computers here. But I did have a problem with the Broadcom drivers on this thing. This machine does not have an Ethernet port. And it also doesn't work with the open source Broadcom drivers, which I know it's fine. I keep a folder with the devs for the Broadcom stuff on it. Except, and maybe he's addressed this. I think I saw a note in the Telegram chat. None of the stuff for building your stuff from source was on the ISO I downloaded. So you can't use DKMS. You couldn't download the Broadcom source thing that Ubuntu uses. Build Essential wasn't on there, which is also needed for that. The DKMS system was. So I don't care if I got to install my crappy proprietary wireless driver off from the side, but I'd really like the stuff on the system to build the driver, because that getting all that is hard. I mean, GCC wasn't installed. That's the C compiler wasn't installed, for crying out loud. You got to have something, because so I just, whatever. It was easier. I just moved it to a different machine and installed the driver. And actually, I don't remember how I installed the driver on this thing. Oh, yeah, I dug out a fob and found a cord to plug it into and did it that way, because it was too much crap to download. But I think he's putting a lot of that on his next spin, so he's kind of filled that one out. A lot of wallpapers. I'm particularly fond of this one right here. Well, you can't see it because of the glare, but the little dolphin guy, you get bonus points. I know that's probably a shout out to KDE, but I like to think it's fair in reaching out to me to apologize for spreading the vicious rumors about the MX Linux bot army on DistroWatch. That's totally his fault, and I'm just, I really appreciate the little on poipus dolphin here for that. I don't care if Vivaldi is the default browser, but the start page, that start page has text that is like this big on the screen. Like I can type a search in his little start page thing, which nobody actually uses the start page search window, but it's there. It uses DuckDuckGo, I think, but it's huge. I could type in like 3 words and they would be off the screen. It's like, tone that text size down a little bit. Let's get it down to, I'm not blind. We can make it 15 point. That'll be fine. I think it's like 36. It's enormous. At least it was on my little netbook here. Let's see. During the install, every time it made a new partition, it gave me another notification that a new partition was being created, which is fine, except I couldn't get rid of the notifications. That's probably because I'm a Plasma noob, okay? Eventually I figured out there's a little arrow in the corner I can click to make the notifications go away. But I was hitting escape, I was clicking off things, and the dang things just stuck around. So that's not really unfair, and that's on Plasma, but God has a lot of notifications to do something I already knew I was doing when I started with. So I don't know the thing. I like the browser chooser thing. That was kind of cool. I like being able to remove it from there and put a new one back on. I don't think I've done an update yet where I haven't had to enter my password at least twice, which seems weird. I think it'd be kind of cool to only have to enter the password once. And the other item, that's all kind of, except for the Broadcom thing, that's all kind of minor. But the other thing is, and I haven't heard anybody talk about it, is the manual. Now, the manual's pretty good, except for someone said the manual's pretty good. The manual is really good if you have an internet connection. If you don't have an internet connection, all the little links in the welcome bar to help you get your Broadcom drivers installed don't work because you need an internet connection. But if I had an internet connection, I wouldn't have a problem installing the Broadcom drivers. So there's a little bit of a catch-22 there. And maybe he can put that part of the thing on there, since it seems reasonable that if you need help connecting to the internet, you provide a link for help to connect to the internet, that maybe you can, put that on the disk so that people can get to it. We used to have that same problem too. It's the only reason I knew to look for it is because we just moved all of our documentation onto the disk. So it comes installed. The other thing is, and I just kind of noticed this today, there's a couple of utilities. One is for, what's this thing called? They both got Ferren's name in it. Let's see here. Ferren maintenance. You run this Ferren maintenance tool and it tells you, we're going to check for some issues, but it doesn't tell you what the issues are. And it does a bunch of things in the background, and I don't know what it was. I haven't looked for it. I kind of remembered that. And there's a tool that sets that does overrides for Windows for applications. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, and I can't find it right now, and I'm not going to bother looking for it. But it has a help button in it. The help button doesn't do anything. Actually, that's not true. It goes to a KDE website that says there's no help available. So
that's not really helpful.
It's not really helpful. And it's probably, maybe it's a KDE app, that's fine, but it's got Ferren's name on it. So if he can redirect that help file to something that, is help, that would be helpful.
Well, he posted in chat that he has a new update for Ferren OS already. It said he made it check for internet access before installing drivers. I guess that would be the installer.
Yeah, that would be good, because I actually had to wait for timeouts in a lot of cases where you went to install something and it doesn't actually check. And so it just sits there and spins, and eventually it will time out, but the timeout's kind of long, or at least it felt long. Maybe it's a real short timeout, but it felt like forever. But I like Ferren. It's fun to rib him a little bit in different feeds and everything. I think it looks fantastic. I like the little global theme thing. Although there's no MX vertical toolbar theme. All your toolbars are backwards. I don't, there's nothing I can do about that. I understand. You don't want to give us, after the bot army comments, you don't want to give us too much hype. But no, I really liked it. All kidding aside, I thought it was really nice. And there's a lot of little touches in there that a lot of one-mans don't have. And I think if Ferren will tell you himself, because we've been kind of chatting back and forth in chat, he pulls a lot of stuff from a lot of different places and brings them in, throws his own spin on them, and puts them on his distro, and they just kind of work okay. And I think that says a lot.
Agreed.
Oh, and just to clear something up, there's one other item. When I started mine up, it popped up that welcome screen, and it said, choose a theme. Okay, I choose a theme. Now, the theme doesn't carry over to the install. This bugged me more than the internet connection. I didn't actually know it wouldn't carry over the internet thing because I had a product. I didn't have an internet driver anyway. But the theme you choose resets too. It'd be kind of cool. And I know why. Technically, I know what the installer is doing. I know why all that happens. But if you're going to force somebody to choose a theme, maybe you should carry it over when they install. It'd be kind of cool.
I think MX does that, right?
We don't. Well, the way MX works, whatever you do, you can check a little box, say carry it over, and it carries it over. But you got to check the box. It's there. Oh, and someone said something about our internet thing. Just to clear something up, that was on the MX 17, 18 series. 19 carries the internet connection over. 17, 18 did too, but for some reason it limited it to the active user, which changes during install. So
I mentioned it. I said that it worked.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Sounds like you have a little plasma envy. Okay, Dave, how have you?
Yes, actually, as you can see, it is actually currently running on my laptop, and I have the fun thing of getting it hooked in. New toy. It installed fine for me. 90% of what Dolphin was talking about with all the problems he had, yeah, it didn't happen for me. The welcome screen was normal. I didn't have Broadcom Wi-Fi. It's Intel, but everything else went through fine. I toasted Vivaldi as soon as I got in because I don't like it. So it wasn't until later that I went looking and found the browser chooser, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And it installed Firefox, pulled my files, my references right in, so everything was set up the way I liked it. Ran my setup script, and it sim linked everything, set up all the files, and didn't cause any crashes. Good and solid. The welcome screen is really nice. I agree with Dolphin that it is a huge number of wallpapers, and a lot of them are truly gorgeous. And the ones that he makes with his own logo on them, like this one, are as good, if not better, than some of the pictures that are out there, and a lot of the logos for other distros that we try. He has put in a ton of work. The only niggle that I have come across, I really don't know that it's anything he has done, is in Nemo. I set up my file manager to be single click, and I'd go out of it, and after I reboot, I go back into Nemo, and it's back to double click. And it wasn't until the third time this happened that I was like, went and looked in the KDE system settings and changed the global setting in there from double click to single click, and it stayed. So if you are in the proper camp of preferring single click to things, you do need to change it in the system settings and not just in the Nemo settings. But Thunderbird came right in. All my accounts opened right up the way they should from the config files. And other than that, I haven't had a lot of chance to play with it yet, but so far it's been very happy, very solid on the system, very fast, and I have not had any problems with it at all.
All right, thanks, Dave. Yeah, so we're getting a little short on time, so we're gonna try to move it along a little bit, but we'll try to get a few more in here. Tyler, how are you,
Hey.
sir?
So I actually ran Ferren in both the VM and on my ThinkPad. Welcome screen actually worked really well, with the exception of one thing. In the virtual machine, it detected that I was in a virtual machine and said, "Do you want to install the VM extras and stuff?" I did that. Resolution and stuff still didn't work. I had to manually go into Synaptic and install some of that stuff so I can get like a proper display resolution and that kind of stuff in VirtualBox. Default layout is interesting, although I'm not a fan of the clock being on its own auto hide panel up top. The clock is kind of one of the things that I actually want to have on the screen at pretty much all times, unless I'm watching a video or something. The theme definitely looks fantastic. I could tell a lot of work has gone into it. On the ThinkPad, I did go straight for the Unity layout, to the surprise of no one. I actually had an issue with that when I tried to do auto hide on the left dock. I still had that space taken up by a hidden panel, and my applications wouldn't actually take up the entire screen when I maximized them. But Ferren said that was fixed with an update, so I updated, reapplied the layout, and it worked just fine. So it's good to know that he's on top of those kinds of things. One critique is that he uses a regular plasma panel on top for the Unity layout, so it does lack a huge piece of functionality for me, and that's the ability to drag a window from that top panel to unmaximize it like in Unity. That is something that Latte Dock does, but the default plasma panel does not do. Next on my list, default applications are actually interesting. It looks like the Photos app is from Elementary, so I found that interesting. Nemo although I prefer Dolphin, Nemo works well enough. I don't really feel the need to install Dolphin. Well, I like
Really?
Vivaldi.
Come on, Tyler.
No, you're done. You're done.
Oh no, we said KDE Plasma, and he appeared.
It's a requirement, apparently.
Well, anyway.
Well,
and
I mean,
I like
before you move on, let's just go back to the most important thing: is Dolphin is not necessary. Is that what you said?
I
believe that's what he said.
Whatever Ferren had.
Okay,
as default.
so I think Tyler's done with his topic, his part.
I still think Dolphin's number one, but Nemo has enough of the functionality for me to get by with it. So, and while I like Vivaldi, prefer Firefox, and the browser selector did a really great job of pulling it down, installing it. Geary, I like the email client. If I wanted more, I'll install Evolution. I also noticed GNOME Calendar was installed by default, which is interesting. Ultimately, grabbing other applications I need, I noticed Flatpak was installed by default. That's awesome. And of course, my last note here, Plasma is awesome. So.
Yep, agreed. Is the FlatHub available by default? I think it is, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Thanks, Tyler. Peter?
Originally, I wasn't going to be here tonight. I've got a house guest, but I excused myself to be here for Mark's memorial remembrance, and was glad to be here for that. I've actually just installed Ferren OS. It just pop up now, so I will review it for next week.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Steve, you're going to go next week, you said. Steven, are you there, sir?
I'm going to go next week as well, Rocco.
Next week. All right. Big Pod?
I didn't do anything with Ferren OS because I was preparing myself for a competition I have on Thursday through Saturday.
All right. Dig it. Derek, sir.
I also had a competition I'm preparing for, so I didn't get a chance to check out Ferren. So.
All right.
Are you competing against each other first?
Yes, me and Big Pod. It's a ping pong championship. So.
Yes, naturally. I mean, it's a Olympic sport, really.
All right. Chris, you said you're going to go next week. Allie, you want to get in real quick?
Yeah, I will go in next week as well because the one I had installed was actually not his Cinnamon, but it's one of his RCs. So I didn't have, I haven't got his full release, if you see what I mean.
Right.
His latest.
It's all good.
Stable.
This is why we do it.
So
2
be
weeks.
unfairly commenting on that. Yes.
All right, Michael. I hate to give you the floor, but go ahead.
You hate to? Wow.
Well, I mean, we only have a limited amount of time here, Michael.
No, there's 32 minutes left. I have at least 32 minutes.
Oh, sorry, Red.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff. I mean, most people would say I haven't tested it enough for me to actually have like a full opinion of it. But I think that there's a lot of really interesting stuff that Ferren has been doing. I do disagree with the whole not using Dolphin part, but Nemo's still pretty good. It's just not Dolphin. But there's a lot of really cool stuff that Ferren has made that are like one that I don't know if y'all tried it or even looked at it, but there's this migration tool where you can take your settings and your configurations and your stuff in your home folder from whatever distro you have to Ferren, and it just does it all automatically by doing this backup package thing, and then it restores the package files. And it also works with Windows, apparently. I haven't tested that, but based on his video explaining what it does, it is supposedly works with Windows too. So that's just like really awesome there, but he's putting that much effort into that kind of thing. And I just wanted to give a point to that, because it's like a lot of the times we don't take in consideration the value of being able to move your files from one to the other. And I think it's really awesome that he's doing that, and every distro should just steal that. I mean, open source, collaborate with it.
Is it the transfer tool you're talking about, Michael?
Yeah, the transfer tool.
Yeah.
Right.
Very cool idea.
The one last thing I want to bring up before we move on is and I forgive me for not remembering because I did have Ferren OS installed on the computer, and I have some, this computer, I have some weird issue with it where it doesn't boot up into Ferren now. So after installing Ferren OS, it's got Budgie on it, it's got Elementary on it, and after installing Ferren, I was in Ferren using it, and then when I went to reboot, it goes to a black screen and the monitor turns off. So the monitor basically goes to sleep, doesn't even give you a BIOS screen, nothing, just goes to sleep. So if you try to hit the button to go to the boot menu, the BIOS boot menu, the computer just basically shuts down. If you let it go and you don't hit any buttons, it boots into Elementary OS after. So it will boot up, it will go into sleep mode, and then 2 seconds later, it will boot into Elementary OS. So that's the only way I can boot this machine right now. So anyway, getting back to Ferren,
May I suggest checking your NVRAM and seeing if it's full on
Say
your
what?
motherboard? Your motherboard holds all the little EFI, the information for booting the various EFI stubs. It doesn't always matter how large your EFI partitions are. You can fill up the NVRAM on the motherboard, and it won't take any more entries.
How would I check that?
I have no idea. I go through. I go into my ThinkPad's UEFI setting, and every now and then I just delete entries because I flooded a kernel panic into my NVRAM once and filled it up that way. I don't know how many distros you'd have to install to do that, but you install a lot of distros, so it might be worth checking.
Yeah, if you go into your quick boot menu and you see a bunch of stuff there, you probably don't want to have all of those in there.
I mean, if you've got 50,
so how do I delete them?
Yeah,
It's
would
part
a
of your
BIOS,
It's part of your
BIOS
BIOS.
reset?
No,
or
don't do a reset.
there should be a tool.
No, there is a tool.
Yeah,
on
you
my
can
screen, on my ThinkPad, it's the same screen that does lets me order which one I want to boot first. I just literally hit the delete key and they vanish.
I will see if I can actually get into the BIOS, but I don't think I can.
If you have a reset button, will that clear it?
Well, it may clear everything, which would leave you in a state where you can't
boot anything.
Yeah.
No, I've used it
Well, no, you
before. It
can.
just resets the entire BIOS to
So
default.
here's the thing with BIOS. It's very dependent on the manufacturer of the system, the BIOS itself. They all are slightly different. The Dell one I have, I can go from quick boot into BIOS, and then in there it shows me all my entries, and I can actually click them and delete them individually. But if you delete it, it's gone.
The thing is, Eric, saying that you can actually get back, you can re-enter the field on the Dell ones anyway, using there's a file manager in Dell's, and you can actually locate the EFI partition.
Yes, you're right.
And add the file back again.
If you remember what that was. that's the trick. I had one last thing. Go ahead, Penguin.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go.
I just usually just do a jumper reset on the CMOS, and that clears my NVRAM.
That's the nuclear option, certainly.
Yeah, mine's got a push button in the back of the motherboard. Yours should too, Eric.
Go ahead,
Eric. Go ahead.
So one thing I wanted to say was Penguin mentioned earlier the translucency effects of stuff you were working on, Dan. So if you look at the application style, it's actually using the Quantum engine. And so that's where the translucency for stuff is. So if you go in there under compositing and general look, menu opacity, so like some of those settings for opacity. So if you were to just use the section that Penguin had mentioned, you won't. Because if you look in there, menus are set to fully opaque, but obviously they're not because Quantum is setting them to 30%.
Yeah,
so
that kind of overrides everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Quantum. Oops.
All right, well, the reason I bring up the BIOS thing was because I didn't remember if, after installing it, I didn't remember if the browser ballot thingy was part of the welcome screen. Like, it asks you what theme to choose or what layout to choose, but did it ask you in the welcome screen for the browser, or is it just a separate program in Ferren OS?
It's just a separate program. It does not ask you which browser.
I think that would be a perfect option right after the layout question would be to pick your browser, because I think that is one of the most important things people think about when using their computer. That's like one of those things where, I mean, how many people tonight said, "Oh, I didn't care for Vivaldi"? Well, give them the ballot right up front to install whatever they want, and I think everybody would be happy.
They should give them the choice and just Firefox, and their choice is done.
Well, what I'm saying is it's already in the system. What? You might as well give them the shortcut in the welcome screen. That way they see it up front.
Well, I mean, that's a fair point, but Firefox. Just use Firefox, everyone.
All right.
Michael likes Google.
That's go ahead.
I was going to say, shout out to Dolphin for that tip. I just removed a lot of old entries from my ThinkPad's boot menu.
Old aquatic mammals know some things.
All right. That is our take on Ferren OS. We are going to try it for another week, give it some more testing, and come back next week and talk about it again. And we'll see what happens for the final week. I do want to thank Ferren for all of the hard work that he puts in, because it is an amazing amount of work to put out a distro, especially on your own. And everything that he does, not only was he doing all of this, but he was also juggling the classic version, which was Cinnamon, and transitioning over to the next version, which is now the regular version, Plasma. So there was a huge amount of work done, and I just want to say it is much appreciated.
Yeah, I think he's still maintaining the classic version.
I believe so, yeah. I don't know how long, but I believe he is.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
All right, so this week it was announced Nextcloud came out with a big announcement saying they were going to do some rebranding, and they were going to get into maybe a different kind of market. Eric, can you explain what they decided to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've used Nextcloud, there's a bunch of different ways you can access it and install it on servers. I would argue that one of the easiest is the Snap installer on an Ubuntu-based server. You literally just say snap install Nextcloud, and hey presto, there's Nextcloud.
It is so fantastic, the difference between that and the regular way.
Yeah, because the regular way is a package. You have to download the compressed archive, and you have to have Nginx, and you have to install all the server components. It's a lot of effort, and in the world of containerization, it's just not worth doing that. And so you can also do Docker containers. That's a way you can get it. But I would say the Snap is probably the most straightforward way. I have not yet tried this new release because the Snap and the containers are not up to date, and I am not going to do that full install. But essentially what it is all the component pieces have been there all along in terms of being able to put together a comprehensive system that has all the parts that you need to, let's say, we're just going to say Google Drive, because their whole suite of you have their docs and everything incorporated. You've got the sharing, you've got file management, you've got all that stuff built in, and mail, calendar, right? The whole suite. And so this is a complete on-premise sort of replacement for that, where you've got all of those pieces now put together in this hub strategy or package, if you want to call it that, where when you install that, all those pieces are already there. Previously, you had to install a lot of that stuff separately, which wasn't necessarily all that difficult. It has a built-in package manager for selecting those and installing them, but then you have to configure them. You have to do a lot of things. So I think what they're trying to do here is to make it as straightforward and easy for someone to grab this package, install it, and then just get up and running very quickly with all those tools pre-configured and ready to go. I mean, obviously stuff to set up your users and set up, there's still some maintenance, some things that have to happen there, but this just gets you that much closer and gives you a better experience out of the box.
So what does that mean to a regular user? Is a regular user going to be able to, say, if I wanted to do something, would I need a server? Would I need just another computer? What do I need to start this process?
Well, first, Rocco, I would never call you a regular user. So, and I mean that in the best possible sense. No, really, what's great is, so I've tested this a bunch of times, just spinning up a virtual machine, installing the Ubuntu server, 1804 LTS release. And literally when you're installing it, it gives you an option to set up snaps. And one of the snap choices is Nextcloud. You say, yes, I'd like that. It's part of the install, it fires all that up. So when you come back up, you have a running system with, all of that there. So you can run it on physical hardware if you have a system that you can host a server on, or you can do it in a virtual machine and install, again, Ubuntu server, just because that's, I think, the easiest way to do it. And then you connect with your web browser, and then everything is done. All the administrative stuff is done through the browser. And hopefully, as part of this, they do have maybe a wizard approach or something that'll quick start get you through. Maybe like, okay, we've got all these things in here for you, but you have to go, set up your email connection and your calendar and your users and things like that. And here are the 5 steps you have to take to do that. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to test it yet. I am interested in looking at it because I did find that was a bit of a hurdle. Even for a more technical person to kind of go and find all of the pieces, because it's not just that there's one calendar option or one office suite or one, there's a bunch of choices and you're never quite sure like which one should I be using here. So them putting all of that together, and then the expectation of you just finding a place to host it and then just configuring those last pieces, I think that does make it a little easier. So, but hopefully that makes sense. I mean, it really is. It's either in a virtual server, and you can do it on a cloud server if you want, although that's kind of their pitch here, is that you don't necessarily want things out in the cloud.
Right.
So yeah, if you're hosting at home, then you're going to have some other things like how do you open the ports on the firewall on your router, port forwarding.
So it's not
like
just, dead simple, to do. I mean, for everyday users, it's not just what I'm saying is it's comparison to right in comparison to Google or something like that. It's not just you go up and sign up for an email address, or you go up and sign up for storage or whatever. This is more detailed, where you would have to do a lot of, well, not a lot, but some install.
If people, so first of all, the audience here, I think, is going to be people who don't want that kind of solution. So that already, you'd want to have something that you aren't trusting Google, you aren't trusting Apple and some of these other cloud services where you want to have control of your own stuff. That's sort of the first hurdle, right? You have to want to do it. And from there, I think they do make it, and I've tried other systems for file sharing and for hosting your own stuff. Nextcloud does make it pretty easy to set up, even for, even modestly technical people. Yes, there's a lot of little things that you might have to learn. Maybe you've never dealt with a server, maybe you've never dealt with snaps and stuff like that. But hopefully this is compelling enough to enough people that there will be great tutorials out there and great information on how to do that. And, maybe that's something I can cover, or others here,
it would be good. It would be a good topic to cover. But
let's say,
go ahead, Nate.
If you're going to set up Nextcloud, at least on OpenSUSE, it's very well documented, step by step, super easy. I know the guy that wrote it.
Can you give us a link to that article, Nate?
I've seen that guy's work. It's not bad.
So I have a quick question about this.
It's okay.
I've been seeing all this about it, and I've heard about all this extra stuff with the Office and all that. Can I still just use Nextcloud as I have before, as just like a basic file synchronization client, more or less?
It's a good question, because I think this is version 18, if I'm not mistaken. They make it sound as though this is the default now. So you may have to actually undo things and turn off services, or if you don't configure them, maybe. I'm not sure. Until I get hands-on, I'm not really going to be able to know.
You can scale it to whatever you want.
Okay, because like that server, all it does is Nextcloud and a Pi-hole, and that's it. And it's on bare metal, more or less. So it's got the resources in order to do that. It's just like, I'm not going to use it for anything other than file synchronization. So like, can I still do that? Because if not, I already set this up like a month ago, and I'd like to not go through and change to something else.
I don't think it's gonna, like, if you're already running it, I don't think it's gonna I don't know. It's a good question, Thomas. It's a fair point.
It'll still work for what you want to do. It'll just probably also have a bunch of stuff you don't want it to do or don't need it to do.
Yeah,
what we can do, Thomas, is we could just fork it.
We'll call it
Yes.
MyCloud.
Well, Derek, let me ask you: is this something that you would be interested in?
Well, I use Nextcloud, but all I use Nextcloud for is kind of like Thomas. I just sync files, between my machines. I don't really need all the extra stuff, all the other integration with those services. So, I mean, as long as it doesn't get in the way of what it's already doing for me, I'm fine with it.
All right. How about everybody else? Are you interested in this, in an alternative to a whole platform, basically like Google with Drive?
Yes.
Or is that something that you guys want?
Yeah, absolutely. We already have a Nextcloud server on Linux OS. That runs.
One thing.
Yeah, I think the value, like, because most of the stuff already kind of existed. Like, I think they were just taking the different pieces that they already had and are combining them together into a package. Because, like, looking at what comes in the hub, all this stuff was already a thing. Like the Nextcloud Talk, but that was in beta for like a year, which was like the chat meeting system thing, the calendar, contacts, mail. Okay, the mail's new, but the other stuff, that's all like been around for a while. And I used the contacts for a long time. The calendar was like every once in a while I used it. I should probably use it more to keep up to not be late for things. So the other stuff looks like it's all just new stuff they're just combining together into a thing. I don't think they should have changed the name. Should have just called it Nextcloud and it's like, this is the new Nextcloud, and then be done with it. Like, it seems kind of pointless to change the name a little bit again for no reason. But whatever. I think that Nextcloud is really good. There's a lot of value to it. There is a lot of setup, but there are ways to avoid the setup if you want to. There are different like services you can implement that make it easier to set up. There's cloud providers that you actually have a thing where you could just create an account with their services, and some of them are free, and then you pay. Depending on how much data you use and that kind of thing.
But wouldn't that be defeating the purpose of using Nextcloud?
It kind of does. I mean, it's
well,
still
sure,
just.
But you asked for easy, and I was giving.
I mean, if it's on, so let's say you do host this on a cloud server somewhere. It's at least your own cloud server, right? And if you feel comfortable, you could harden it and make sure that people can't get. I mean, it's still it's not a terrible solution to have it out somewhere. It's not the cloud, right? It's not Google. Right. It's not Apple. You can still control access. So I don't see it as being counter to what they're trying to do to run it on, DigitalOcean or something like that. It's just, and they actually give you, like Michael's saying, when you spin up a server, you can create a Nextcloud instance from their tools.
Yeah.
So it's not as maybe, let's say, secure as being inside your own network and then opening ports if you wanted to do that. Although that's not infallible either. So
yeah, I mean, in that case, you'd want to do you want to create a VPN on your local network so that when you get to your Nextcloud, you have to go through that VPN to get to the Nextcloud stuff, and that would be much more secure than opening up ports and stuff.
Right. But
so
to Rocco's point, we start getting into now it becomes very complicated.
Yes.
Right. My hope is that there would be something out there that would compete with Google, that would give you all of the services like that, but in a way like Nextcloud is talking, where it's your own, that it's easy to do for everyday people. You don't have to be some tech guy to install all of this. That's what people are looking for.
Well, so to be fair, you can do that locally, but the problem is doing that online. That's where my hang up is. I don't want to put it online because to me, it's just not worth it. and then I have to deal with security. But you can do it locally. The problem is you can't access it from like the apps because you can't get a certificate set up that way.
Well, you can still use. Again, it's just more layers of complexity. So
yes,
yeah.
I think there is a possibility if you want to go this route. The easiest solution possible is you can buy hardware with Nextcloud already installed, and you just connect it to your network, and it gives you access to it. So like there is stuff like that, and there are ways to have like there's like adapters that you connect to your LAN, and it will create a port that's over a VPN that's automatically set up that only works by you getting into that device and then go to the rest of your LAN. So you'd have to get into that device first as like a buffer thing. So there are ways to do it with like hardware that makes it a lot easier, but there's not any services that have an easy setup and then go. There are ways to do it, but not in a local sense. Like there's an easy way to do it locally if you don't need to do a lot of syncing stuff. If you do need to do a lot of syncing stuff, there's any way to do it, but it's not local.
So
and it requires something like a droplet.
I know I've talked a lot. I just have two quick things. Excuse me. One is to Rocco's point about something that's easy. I'm just going to say this, and I don't mean this to be pretentious or mean or anything like that. If you aren't comfortable running a server, you either should educate yourself to get comfortable, or maybe consider not doing it, because especially if you're going to run this where there's open connections from the outside world.
Agreed.
You just because you can go on DigitalOcean or somewhere like that and spin up this instance and have this running. Yes, they do some of the groundwork for you in terms of hardening their servers and adding, best practice sort of stuff on there. But running a server it's some work, and you have to be diligent, and you have to know what you're doing, and that only comes from experience. And so I'm just saying, take the time to figure it out.
I mean,
I think a lot of the budget web hosts make it seem easier than what it is, because a lot of them offer these one-click, here's your Nextcloud server and it's ready to go, where if it was kind of like it was back in the day where all you had was a SSH login and you had to go through the command line to install everything. I know, it sounds kind of elitist that I should say you should have to go through that, but you kind of should have to go through that before you start putting documents on a server that could potentially, be hacked.
But it's important what you're saying, Derek, because, it's not elitist. It's for your own safety that you know what you're doing, because it's your own stuff that's going on there, and you may not realize all of the things that can happen if you're not up on it, like Eric's saying.
The other thing is, from looking at their blog and news posts and a couple other things on their website, this is very obviously a small business play to put this kind of setting. It's meant to be inside the small business network, someone who's probably got a VPN if they're doing network stuff already. There's an expectation that someone's there operating the thing now. So more complicated than someone using like Office 365 for Microsoft, but not as complicated as SSH.
I think Nextcloud is one of those things that, like, I completely agree with everybody so far. Like, because like the security part is a very important piece that I didn't point out. Like, I'm kind of ashamed of myself for not saying it first. But like when you have self-hosting is a thing that sounds awesome. And it is good because it means that something is available to you, and it means that it's probably open source, and not always, but probably. And there is a lot of value into it, but it's kind of like, I don't know, glorified somewhat these days and kind of promoted as like the best thing to do, but it's not necessarily the best thing to do if you're not familiar with server management, because server management unless you like it, it's very masochistic a little bit, because is a lot of details you have to make sure that you cover in every single time you set up a server. And when you do the marketplace setups, you still need to go in and harden things. Even though it's already hardened to a point, you can always harden it more. And if you're going to put very important files onto a server, you need to make sure that, as much as you possibly can, that you can do that. And you also have to get familiar with updating, because updating is the most annoying thing about self-hosting. That's what you need to like get familiar with. And whatever you push for hosting, you have to make sure that you can manage the updates, because most of the time they're not seamless. But I think that Nextcloud is probably the best merge of those things, where it's like it's somewhat easy versus like taking individual pieces like a calendar and another tool for email and all that other stuff and put them together. Email, by the way, is the most torturous self-hosting thing you could possibly do. Don't ever even bother with that. And then doing all that stuff and put it in one package, it's actually not as like it is kind of the best you can get at the moment for what they're offering. And I think that's good. But I would say that if you didn't want that kind of thing and you just want like an easy access to some of this stuff, like there's no file option. But Proton Mail is launching a calendar system. So it's going to have the contacts, mail, calendar, and stuff like that. And maybe they'll add a file system at some point. But if you just want like a kind of a comparable to Gmail and that sort of thing, that's a good option too.
Worth noting that the email portion is just the client and it's not hosting an email server for you.
Oh, well, in that case, yeah, that's not even.
Want to go with the service like Proton
or
something like Collab Now to use in the back end, and then use Nextcloud for the front end.
Well, if it's not helping with managing the servers, then like it does, I wouldn't count it as a piece of the thing anyway. Then, if it's just a client, so
Proton's another good. So they just added calendar as a beta thing. And I could see them over time adding additional features. So I think there will be better options to cloud services over time. They're just not there right now. And to Dolphin's point, I think Nextcloud in a small business environment where they do have a tech person, like someone could just easily go in and set up a server for them, make sure it's all the way it should be, and all of that stuff. And so
I'll continue to trust Google because they tell me how long it takes to get to work, and they're never wrong.
On that note, we're out of time. All right. That's going to wrap it up for this week. But everybody gets the last word. Eric?
Rocco, thank you for putting this on. As I say every week, this is my community, my people. I'm so glad to see everybody. And again, my heart goes out to Mark's family, and I'm glad we got a chance to start the show that way. And rest in peace, Mark. We will remember you and carry on your tradition, hopefully. So,
all right. Before we move on, I just want to mention, Nate, can you like move up in the camera just a little bit so that everybody can see that you and Dan have the exact same T-shirt on, which was not planned. All right, Nate, last word.
Thanks once again for hosting this and for giving an outlet for the community, and much of the same sentiments. Mark Greaves family, thoughts and prayers with you. I wish you the best. Mr. Greaves will be missed, and we'll see you next week.
Dan, last word.
Thanks as always, Rocco. Look forward to giving Ferren a little more of a try this week, and thanks to Ferren for being in the chat. And my thoughts go out to the Greaves family, and from what I know of him, it's the type of person I strive to be every day. So,
all right, Vash, last word.
Thanks for the stream, and hopefully I will be back on next week, and we can give some more thought or give some thoughts on Ferren OS.
All right, Eris, last word.
Thank you for your show, everybody. I didn't talk much with Mark. The few times I did, he was very nice, and I think having used PeppermintOS, you can really see all the passion, all the hard work he put into it, and I know he will be greatly missed.
Tony, last word.
Thanks for doing this, Rocco, as always. I didn't know Mark very well at all, only through the chat, but he will be missed, and my thoughts are with his family and friends.
All right. Penguin, last word.
Well, thank you for having us, Rocco, and my thoughts and prayers are with Mark Greaves' family. Also, another thing that's not planned, the curtains, me and Eric. All right. Have a great day and a great week.
Thomas, last word.
Well, thank you for allowing me back on the stream again this week. I didn't know Mark Greaves very well. Like I said, I only talked to him once or twice. I have a great amount of respect for him, and I wish I could have got to know him a lot better because he sounds like an amazing guy. So in that thread, be sure to go check out PeppermintOS because it is really a great distro, just like Ferren OS is. And I actually have, off subject a little bit, a laptop to actually try out distros on for once.
Nice.
Just test them out on here.
Nice.
So it's already had Draugr OS installed on it. I have no idea how many times, but yeah, it's going to get Ferren OS and Peppermint OS on it soon. So thanks for having me on.
All right, Jason, last word, brother.
All right. Again, thank you for hosting this show and putting this on for the community, and your heartfelt condolences to the Mark Greaves family. I'm so new to Linux, I didn't even know who he was until this all happened. But I'm deeply sorry for his family and their loss, and hopefully, I'm just grateful that this community has been banded together the way it has in honor of Mark Greaves and giving out the kind words that they have.
All right, Dan Kelly, last word.
Rocco, once again, thank you for putting us all together on this show tonight. And my thoughts and prayers go out to Mark Greaves' family. It's a loss to our community, but hopefully that we will be able to grow from it and bond together, and that things like this in the future won't be so common. With that said, on to the next person.
Bill, last word.
And I'm the next person. Thank you, Rocco, for doing this. One little story that some of you may know and may have read or listened to on a podcast. So Jason Evangelo talked about when he had some installation stuff going on with Peppermint, and Mark reached out to him and spent several hours. That wasn't because Jason Evangelo was a media person. That's because Mark was the person he was. He did that to a large number of people who have no media impact. So as you go through Linux and someone may have an issue that pops up in a channel, help them like Mark would have. That's all I got to say.
Well said, Bill. Colin, last word.
Yes, I didn't know Mark Greaves very well, only through chat and quite a few comments on my videos. And he seemed like a nice guy. So my condolences go out to Mark Greaves' family and his friends, his close friends, and the Peppermint team. Thanks for the platform here, Rocco and gang. It's great. And I'll see you all next week.
All right, Dolphin, last word.
So peace out, peace to Mark's family. I've said what I said on Twitter. Now my birthday was this week. My son got me a little game on Steam. He knows me well enough by now to make sure it runs on Linux. So I've got a little game of Rusted Warfare I got to go try. It's $5. It's kind of bizarre. Zeb will never play it because the pixels are pixely, but it's a hoot. It runs on nothing. Check it out. Thanks, guys.
Happy birthday, Dolphin.
Oh, thank you. Pepperoni rolls.
21 again, huh?
Been 21 a lot, man. Freaking beard just gets grayer and grayer.
21 times.
That's why I don't wear one. And Dave, last word.
Thank you, Rocco and crew, for this place and this time. I'd like to say thank you to the Greaves family for allowing Mark the time to interact with the rest of us. I consider myself a better person for having met him. So thank you.
Tyler, last word. Tyler. Peter, last word.
I was glad to be here, especially for Mark. By the way, Solus are being sneaky. They have a one thing happening on Monday, January 27th. Ask me later for details.
All right. Nice. Steve, last word.
I think we've proven that we come for the Linux, but we stay for the community. I'm going to miss Mark's influence, but his work and his spirit lives on in the Peppermint Forum. So check that out, guys. And we'll see y'all later. Take care.
Big Pod, last word.
Thank you for having us, and just figured out the Nextcloud thing. When you do the installation wizard, the last thing it asks you is if you want to install recommended apps, which are calendar, context, talk, mail, and only Office. So if you uncheck that, you get a clean experience like you did before.
All right, Derek, last word.
Well, thank you for having me, Rocco. It's good to be here. My thoughts go out to Mark Greaves' family and the Peppermint community. And that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thanks for being here, Derek.
Yep.
Chris, last word.
Rip Mark, R.I.P. rather. Not a whole lot. I'm going to save everything else up for next week.
All right. Allie, last word.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Mark. You are going to be missed. I'm going to miss bantering with you on the chat streams. You was a phenomenal guy. You was always there to help, no matter who or what. Fantastic. Thank you for having the stream again tonight, Rocco. It's been a blast as always. And yeah, I'll see you all next week. Have a great night.
All right, Paul, last word. Paul.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. And my heart and prayers go out to him and his family. Thanks, everybody.
All right, Tyler, go ahead.
So, yeah, audio didn't go through earlier. Anyway, yeah, I had fun playing with Ferren on the ThinkPad last week. Looking forward to week 2 with it. And yeah, thank you for all that you do.
All right. I do want to mention Zeb was not here tonight, and he wasn't here for reasons. Obviously, he was very, very close to Mark, and I don't think he was able to do the show tonight. That's all I can say about that, and I completely agree. I want to number one mention that David Muller, Screaming Wolf, was on Linux Spotlight this past week. You should check it out. That was a fantastic conversation by somebody who's another down-to-earth guy just talking about Linux. Next week, Wednesday at 6 a.m., I sit down with Wendy Hill, and we'll have a conversation about photography and Linux and all kinds of good stuff. So look for that. I do want to thank Mark's family for, and echo what Dave said. Thank you for sharing Mark with us and allowing him to be here. He will be greatly missed. And that's all I can say. I will leave you with a podcast, and I will put a link in the YouTube chat called Parking Thought. And last week, Jacob Rucker joined Biddle just for a couple minutes, and we got to talk to him about, what he's about. And his podcast is really short, but really good. And it has to do with highlighting good things that happen in the community. And this week was a great episode, but his closing statement on his podcast is, if you could do a million things with your life, choose to be grateful. That's his closing statement. And I think that's awesome. So our time is limited here, and nobody knows when that is. So choose to be grateful. Until next time, long live Linux.
See yous.
Bye, all.
See you. Take care, all. Thank you for being here.
Take care, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
man.
Okay, can we swear again there?